Okay, good morning, class. Again, good morning, class. Okay, thank you. So, please call your other classmate to end the Google Meet because we are about to start our discussion this morning. Okay, we will start at exactly 7:30 in the morning. So, we are still have 3 minutes left. Okay, shall we start? So may I request Miss Jeremy to lead our prayer this morning. Okay, for those who are Catholic, please do the sign of the cross. Okay, thank you, Jeremy, for that. So, hello everyone. Hello class. So I am Daisy P. Magallanes, your instructor in this morning. So, who is the secretary in this section? Okay, may I request the secretary to check the attendance and send it to my email account. Okay? So, before we're going to start our discussion, let me present to you my classroom rules. So, the first one, respect your teachers and classmates. Follow the teacher's directions. Be responsible and attentive. Do not make unnecessary noise. Cooperate with your classmates. Okay, is it attainable, class? Of course, we must attend these classroom rules because if one of you disobeyed the classroom rules, your points will be deducted. Is that clear? Okay. So now, without any further ado, let us start our class this morning. So who among you can still remember our previous lesson? Anyone? Okay, Geraldine, please share your ideas about our previous lesson. Okay, thank you for that. So any one of you who can wrap up or summarize our lesson or our discussion last meeting? Okay, Cheryl? Yes, that's a good idea. So, do you have any questions or clarification regarding to our previous lessons? Okay, so since there is none, I have here an activity which is arrange me. So this is individual activity. So all you need to do is to arrange the letters to form the correct words. So I'll give you 5 minutes to do that. Is that clear? Okay. So you can start now. Okay, class, are you done? Okay, so let us check if your answers are correct. Okay, these are the correct answers. So the first one is dramatic. Number 2 is ballad. Number 3 is lyric. Number 4 is rhyme. 5 is quatrain. 6 is verse. 7 is compositions. 8 is lines. And 9 alliterations. And 10 is poems. Okay, so do you have any idea what would be our next topic this morning? Okay, anyone? Yes, Jibril? Yes, exactly. So our next topic this morning is all about poetry. Okay, so do you have any idea or background knowledge about poetry? Okay, anyone who can share the ideas? Yes, Arlan. Please share your ideas. Okay. Okay, thank you for that. Very good. So, any one of you who can define or define the word poetry in your own words? Yes, Cheryl. That's good. That's a good idea. So since you have background knowledge about poetry, so I have here my objectives in this discussion. So my objective in this lesson, at the end of the lesson, the students can express insight about the different definition of poetry, describe the elements of poetry, and compose a poem expressing their memorable experiences. Okay. So I have here a group activity. So direction, each group will find 10 words that correspond to the word poetry and explain why this word represent or correspond to the poetry. So when you are done, please choose one representative to discuss your output in the class. So I'll give you 5 minutes to do that. So now you can start. Okay, are you done? Okay, please choose one representative to present your group. For the group 1, wow, that's the good idea. So the next, the group 2. Wow, I think you have idea what is poetry really is. So now, did you know what is poetry? Anyone? Still, you have a background knowledge about poetry. You can give some a little descriptions about what is poetry. Okay, Nara. Wow, brilliant. Very good. So, now, without any further ado, let us discuss what is poetry. So, the poetry is a literature that evokes a concentrated imaginative awareness of experience or a specific emotion response through language chosen and arranged for its meaning, sounds, and rhythm. So, why is it poetry is a literature? So, what is literature? So, in your own words, what is literature? Anyone who can share? Yes, Grisel? Please share your ideas in front of the class. Very good. That's the good idea. So now, let us discuss or give a little details what is literature. So, literature is a body of written works. The name has traditionally applied to those imaginative works of poetry and prose distinguished by the intentions of their authors and the perceived aesthetic excellence of their execution. So what are the examples of literature? So the example of literatures are essay, poems, short story like drama, fictions, or music. It is the examples of literature. So literature may be classified according to a variety of systems, including language, national origin, historical period, genre, and the subject matter. So now, let's move on to poetry. Um, Poetry is the other way of using language because we can express our ideas by using or by making poems or poetry. So by that, so when we express our expression, we also use language and learn how to use language appropriately. So poetry is a vast subject as old as history and older, present wherever religion is present. So possibly under some definitions, the primal and primary form of languages themselves. So the present article means only the described is as general a way of possible certain properties of poetry and poetic thought regarded as in some sense independent moods of mind. And naturally, not every tradition nor every local or individual variations can be or need be included. But the article illustrates by examples of poetry ranging between nursery rhymes and epic. So poetry in the other words is a language. Why? Because so in some hypothetical beginning of things, it was only way of using language. So now let us move on to the literary devices of the poem. So the first one, actually there's a lot of literary devices in the poem, but I choose these literary devices to explain this morning. So the first one is imagery. So the imagery is the creations of any sensory effect like visual, auditory, olfactory, gustatory, tactile, kinesthetic, and organic. Imagery in the poetry is a vivid and vibrant form of descriptions that appeals to readers' senses and imaginations. So despite of the word's connotation, imagery is not focused solely on visual representations or mental images. So it refers to the full spectrum of sensory experience, including the internal emotions and physical sensations. So imagery allows the readers to clearly see, excuse me, touch, taste, and smell, and hear what is happening around them. So in some cases, even empathize with the poet of their subject, whether it's the classical sonnets of Shakespeare or the serene social commentary from poets in the African diaspora like Langston uses imagery the breathless and intensifies the poetic works. So actually, there is types of imagery which is visual. So in this form of poetic imagery, the poet appeals to the reader's sense of sight by describing something, the speaker or the narrator of the poem. So the next one, so for examples of the imagery is this, entitled The Frog and the Nightingale. So, but one night a nightingale in the moonlight cold and pale, perched upon the sumac tree, casting forth her melody. Here we can imagine the sense of night that is called a nightingale is singing melodiously on a branch of sumac tree. So the next types of imagery is the auditory imagery. So this form of poetic imagery appeals to the readers of hearing or sounds. So it may include music and other pleasant sounds, harsh noises, or silence. So the next one is gustatory imagery. In this form of poetic imagery, the poet appeals to the reader's sense of touch by describing something the speaker of the poem feels on their body. It may include the feel of temperatures, textures, and other physical sensation. The next one is tactile imagery. So in this form of poetic imagery, the poet appeals to the reader's sense of the next one is kinesthetic imagery. So in this form of poetic imagery, the poet appeals to the reader's sense of motions. The next one is the organic imagery. So in this form of poetic imagery, the poet communicates internal sensation such as fatigue, hunger, and tears, as well as internal emotions such as fear, love, and despair. So now let us move on to simile. So what is simile? So it is the comparison between two things or person by using like or as. So it is being compared. So in simile, it is comparison between two unlike things that uses the words like or as. So a poet uses this kind of figurative language to say that one thing is similar to another, not like metaphor that it is used words and another. So more often similes are used to make larger connections. So they can help a reader dig deeper into what poet was thinking about when they wrote a particular poem or even a specific line. So for example, the words or the phrases here, the bride had paced into the hall, red as a rose is she. So in these phrases, the poet compared the bride into rose by using the word as. So now let us move on to metaphor. So what is metaphor? So metaphor is a directed comparison by using or by highlighting the particular quality of two things. So a metaphor is a figure of speech that makes a comparison between two unlike things. So not like the simile, so they are just being compared. But in metaphor, they are being compared what is the differences between the two person or a subject. As a literary device, so metaphor creates implicit comparisons between the express use of like or as. Metaphor is a means of asserting two things are identical in comparison rather than just similar. So this is useful in literature for using specific images or concepts to state abstract truths. So for example, the poem entitled The Frog and the Nightingale. So you are Mozart in disguise. Here the poet compares the nightingale, the frog singing ability with that of the great musician Mozart. Okay, the next one is metonymy. So what is metonymy? So the metonymy is a kind of figurative language that refers to a situation in which one term is substitute for another. So the substitution is made because of some pre-existing relationship between the two things. So the metonymy is a figure of speech in which one object or idea takes the place of another with which it has a close association. So in fact, the metonymy means change of name. As a literary device, it is a way of replacing an object or idea with something related to it instead of stating what is actually meant. So the metonymy enables writers and the readers to express words or thought in a different way by using a closely related words or thought. Therefore, this is a method for writers to vary their expressions and produce an effect for the reader. So for example, the pen is mightier than the sword. So in the former, the word pen is substituted for the written word in general. And the sword for military might. So now let us move on to symbols. So symbolism is a literary device that refers to the use of symbols in a literary work. So a symbol is something that stands for or suggests something else. So it represents something beyond literal meaning. In literature, a symbols can be a word, object, actions, characters, or a concept that embodies and evokes a range of additional meaning and significance. So symbolism as a literary device that uses symbols. So they can be words, people, marks, locations, or abstract of ideas to represent something beyond the literal meaning. So the concept of symbolism is not confined to works of literature. So for example, in his poem Fire and Ice by Robert Frost, utilized symbolism to indicate the readers how the world may be destroyed. By using the phrases, some say the world will end in fire, some say in ice. So now, let us move on to personification. So what is personification? So it is when you give an object or an animal a human behaviors. So personification is a literary device that uses the non-literal use of language to convey concepts in a relatable way. So the writers or the poets use personification to give human characteristics such as emotions and behaviors to non-human things like animals and ideas. So for examples, the sun is smiling. So the sun gives human characteristic which is smiling. And also the next example is the dog sing a song. So the dog gives a human characteristic which is sing. So the next one is irony. So irony is a literary device in which contradictory statements or situations reveals a reality that is different from what appears to be true. So irony as a literary device is a situation in which there is a contrast between expectations and reality. So for example, the difference between what something appears to mean versus its literal meaning. So irony is associated with both tragedy and humor. So the next one is hyperbole. So hyperbole is a figure of speech in which an authors or speakers and maybe the poet purposely and obviously exaggerates to an extreme. It is used for emphasis or is a way of making decisions more creative and humorous. It is important to note that hyperbole is not meant to be taken literally. So the audience knows it's an exaggeration. So again, the hyperbole is a figure of speech and literary device that creates heightened effect through deliberate exaggeration. So hyperbole is often a boldly overstated or exaggerated claim or statement that adds emphasis without the intentions of being literally true. So in rhetoric and literature, hyperbole is often used for serious comic and ironic effect. So now let us move on to alliteration. So alliteration is a literary technique derived from Latin meaning letters of alphabet. It occurs when two or more words are linked that share the same first consonant sound. So alliteration is prosody, the repetition of consonant sounds at the beginning of the words or phrases, syllables. So sometimes the repetitions of initial vowel sounds or the rhyming scheme is also referred to as alliteration. So a poetic device, it is often discussed with assonance and consonants. So for examples, peeper, peeper, pick a peak of pickled peppers. Here the alliteration here is the repetitions of the P letters, which is the Peter, pepper, pick, and pick of pickles, peppers, which has a same consonant sound. So now let us move on to assonance. So assonance or a vowel rhyme is the repetitions of vowel sounds across a line of text or poetry. So the words have to be near enough to each other that the similar vowel sounds are noticeable. So which means that the vowel sounds are repeated within phrases or sentences that are close to each other. So it can occur within individual words, or assonance can involve the repetitions of identical vowels or vowel sounds that are very similar. So for examples, go slow on the road, or the short E sound N. So in here the phrases go slow on the road, the vowel O is repeated. And also in the next phrases, seal the wedding bells, the E letter is being repeated. So now let us move on to onomatopoeia. So onomatopoeia is a literary device where words mimic the actual sounds we hear. So the next one is the rhyme. The rhyme scheme is the pattern of sound that repeats at the end of a line or stanza. So rhyme schemes can change in line by line, stanza by stanza, or can continue throughout the poem. So for example, the rhyme scheme ABEB means the first and the third lines of a stanza are being rhymed, or that has a rhyming scheme. So the rhyme scheme is a words or conventionally share all sounds following the word's last rest of the syllable. So the next one is the repetition. Repetition is when words or phrases are repeated in a literary work or a poem. So the repetition is often used in poetry or song, and it is used to create rhythm and bring attention to an idea. So the repetition is also often used in speech or as a rhetorical device to bring attention to an idea. So for example, let it snow, let it snow, let it snow, let it snow. So in these phrases, the words are being repeated throughout the phrases. And also the second phrase says, oh woeful, oh woeful, oh woeful day. Also in these phrases, the words are being repeated. Okay, so do you have any questions or clarifications regarding to our discussion this morning? Okay, since there is none, I have here a group activity. So it is Fill Me Now. So since you already have a group, the group will choose a theme of a poem they want to imitate. Then each student writes their own stanza, and after that, the students read their stanzas and work together to decide how the poem best fits together. So the students then record themselves reading their poem by filming something that goes along with the content of the poem. So I'll give you 15 minutes to do that. Okay, are you done? Okay, since you are done, you can send your output to my email account. So now let us move on. So I have here another activity which is individual activity. So all you need to do is to compose your own poem to express your memorable experiences that you will never forget. You can choose any theme that you want, as long as you can express your thought about your experiences. So I'll give you 5 minutes to do that. Okay, are you done? So you can submit your output to my email account so that I can check it later. So now let us move on to our next activity. So since we discussed some of the literary device in the poetry, so all you need to do is to make a graphic organizer that describe or define the similarities and differences of the literary devices. Okay, are you done, class? Okay, you can submit your output. So in your assignment, all you need to do is to read the poem entitled Still I Rise by Maya Angelou. Then all you need to do is to underline and discuss the figurative devices used in the poem. Also, you need to make an essay that express your understanding about the literary devices. Is that clear? Okay. I think that would be all in our class session in this morning. Goodbye, class.